What unsolved mystery have you been through that has absolutely no plausible explanation? My experience is something a little more terrifying than what I've seen here. I'd like to think of myself as a rational man, but what happened to me can only be explained by magic. Okay, so I was at a big Dungeons and Dragons meetup / convention center thing about 2 years ago, and after talking on a panel, I basically just ran some people through how to create your character the correct way. I went to the bathroom, and it was one of those single person bathrooms, with a single toilet and urinal. It's important to note that I locked the door carefully. It's also important that I never or saw heard anyone come in. After using the toilet and starting to wash my hands, I looked in the mirror and there was a fucking person using the urinal. I uttered a very unpleasant screech, which startled the guy at the urinal. He started to scream for me to get out, which I tried to do, but the door was still locked. 10/10ths would not use that restroom again, it's haunted. Door is probably just busted, honestly. Same thing happened to me at a work party. Locked the door behind me and went for a piss, but some dude just walked in and used the unoccupied stall. Door was still locked, it was just broken. He was there when you entered, you just didn't notice him. Maybe in a corner, maybe at the mirror, you just overlooked him. We don't notice nearly as much as we think we do. You went in, probably looking down, locked the door, did your business, and then noticed him later when he finally moved to use the urinal. Then you both freaked out. When I was in college, I spent my summers working construction. My co-worker and I get to our job site early one morning and this homeless man, with a full pitcher of beer in hand, Mystery B, says, "Hey, let me talk to you for a second," and walks real close to me. He says, "Look, I got $10 in my pocket, and I got a wager for you. I bet you that you can walk to your truck, write down anything you want on a piece of paper, tear it up, and I can tell you exactly what you wrote, word for word, on it. If I miss one word, you get my $10. If I get it all right, you owe me $5. I was very intrigued, but told him I didn't have any money. He said, "You got a credit card? How about if I'm right, you go buy me a sandwich from the shop over there." At this point, I'm going to buy the sandwich for the guy no matter what, because he was interesting, but I wanted to see this trick. I walk back to the truck and write, "Brian broke the window at my mom and dad's house last Saturday at 12 p.m. I tell the homeless man that I'm done, and he tells me to rip up the paper, leave it in the truck, and come back over to him. Once I get there he says, "Alright, look me in the eyes." So I stare into his eyes for about 20 seconds, and then he says, "Brian broke the window at my mom and dad's house last Saturday at 12 p.m. My jaw drop. The homeless man cheers, and then gives me a big bear hug. Went and bought him his sandwich and we talked a bit while he ate. Allegedly, he was a magician in Vegas back in the day, and had fallen on hard times. After he finished, we shook hands and he left. For the life of me, I can't figure out how he did the trick. I checked around me to make sure he didn't have a spotter, and I turned around so that he couldn't see me writing or mouthing what I was writing. Never saw the guy around the job site again. If anyone knows a secret, I'd love to know how he did it. My brother had a similar experience with a guy he worked for. He asked him to write something on a piece of paper, look at it, then cut it up. He wrote, "What will my life be in the future?" Cut up the paper. Went back to the guy. The guy stared at him, then wrote down exactly the same thing, included the question mark in that style. Needless to say, my brother is still surprised to this day. Okay, WTF. So I grew up in Las Vegas. When I was in high school, one day we randomly had a substitute teacher who was kinda young and said that he was a magician, but had to take the substitute teacher gig to get by. One of the perky cheerleader type girls said something like, "I bet you're not a good magician then." He then proceeded to show us a magic trick. He asked us to write something that happened to us that morning in a piece of paper while we sat at our desks, to make sure no one saw what we wrote. I remember he asked for us to rip the papers and throw them away in the same wastebasket. He was just sitting at the teacher desk the whole time. He then went up to the snarky girl first and said whatever it was that she wrote. She was shocked and screeching. Then he came to me and said, "Some people don't understand the concept of a four-way stop sign and should not have a driver's license." This is exactly what I wrote, because some person nearly hit me at a four-way stop sign. Okay, my way to school that morning, I remember making damn sure that no one could see me writing this on a piece of paper, and it's just a random thing. How the hell did he know what I wrote? It scrambled my brains for a few days until I forgot about it. Until now that your post reminded me. Just like when I read about UFOs. There was a comment on a post I saw yesterday about a person who was folding a towel, momentarily got distracted, and then couldn't find the towel. Years later, they still haven't found it. They even looked more after commenters demanded so and made suggestions. No luck. I really want to know where that towel is. Had this happened to me with a post-it note, I had just moved into my college apartment, and there was nothing in my room except my bed and my computer desk. I had been given a post-it with some semi-important info on it. Can't remember anymore. I set the post-it on my bed and sat on the bed, chatted with my roommate in the doorway, and then turned to pick up the post-it. Gone. It wasn't stuck to me. Roommate couldn't have grabbed it and had no reason to. It wasn't on or under or in anything. Initially I tried to laugh it off, but it seriously bothered me. I literally took apart the bed, moved the computer desk, checked the ceiling fan, in the windowsill. Window was closed. Outside the room. Literally everywhere it could possibly or impossibly be I checked. I thought maybe I'd move out and find it, but a year later I moved out and it still didn't turn up. The hell happened? I was the only one at the registers once, and a coworker came by, put a piece of paper down next to an unused register, and asked me to make sure nothing happened to it. I ring up a few customers, coworker comes back, and the paper is gone. I swear that I have no idea where it went. She's upset and wanders off somewhere. Maybe 15 minutes later I'm called into the loss prevention office and they show me a security video of a customer going up to the register where the paper was, me going to see what they need, and while talking to them, and without ever looking away from them, or even glancing at the counter, I grab the paper, ball it up, and throw it in the trash. I had absolutely zero recollection of having done that. When I hear stories like yours I always remember that day at work and think there's a good chance that you, entirely subconsciously, just threw it in the trash. Maybe you searched your trash and I'm completely wrong, but it's crazy what people can do without even realizing it. I have written about this before, but when I was a kid, we lived in a very tiny house. Me, my father, mother, and our Jack Russell. The front door opened into the living room, and if you looked through the front door, my bedroom door was directly opposite. So, I'm around 7 or 8 at the time, and I wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning to someone just absolutely pounding at the door. I'm surprised my parents aren't awake. The Jack, who usually goes insane if someone 3 houses over sneezes, is quiet. I go to the door and put my hand on it. The pounding stops, and just as I'm about to go, oh, gee, just me imagining things, it picks up again. To this day, I can feel the vibrations on my fingers. I look out the window that looks to the front porch, and I see no one there. I take a chance and peek out the small window on the door. What I find really odd is that the vibrations are hardest at the bottom of the door, right where someone would kick the door, but they are still sounding like a rapid knocking. It is almost as if someone is lying on their stomach and knocking on the bottom of the door. At this point, I'm scared shitless, so I barricade my bedroom door and wait for the pounding to stop. It eventually does. When we get up the next morning, my parents are confused to see multiple muddy boot prints going up and down our sidewalk and to our front door. Long story short, I have no fucking idea what happened that night, other than something really bizarre. Something similar happened to me, well actually my mother, but I was around 7 or 8 too. The house that this happened in was supposedly haunted, but I don't really believe in that sort of thing. Anyway, it's around 3 or 4 in the morning, and my mother hears the doorbell ring. Obviously, it's not normal for the doorbell to ring at like 3 in the morning, so she goes to the door and sees someone moving by the keyhole. She decides to go to the window to see if anyone was there, but there was no one. The thought of that happening to me still creeps me out to this day. I was handed a parking pass at a new job once. I held it in my hand, never opening my hand, speaking to anyone, or stopping until I arrived at my car across the street. I looked down, and my hand was still closed, but the parking pass was gone. Never found it. No idea how it came out of my hand. The Devil's Kettle Falls have many possible plausible explanations, but I'm just baffled that we haven't been able to figure out which is the correct one yet. It's a waterfall in Minnesota that splits into two streams, one that goes down to a little creek, and one that disappears into a hole in the rocks and is never seen again. People have tried getting cameras down there, dropping all kinds of things like ping pong balls, even dioxide, and none of it ever washes up anywhere. Thousands of gallons of water a day fall into the hole, so it has to be going somewhere, but nothing ever resurfaces. Where does it go?